All right, folks, we are back. Welcome in. It is the Last Word on Sports Media podcast. I am merely the somewhat competent co-host, TJ Reeves. Hello to my co-host, Mike Gill of the Sports Bash Show, weekday afternoons in Atlantic City, New Jersey, the greater Philadelphia media market. Good to have you back, my friend, as the scorching hot summer of 2025 continues. We've got subjects galore, Major League Baseball trading deadline that's coming up. The death of Ryne Sandberg that has happened on Monday, the Chicago Cub icon. We're going to have more on that. The horrific situation involving the shooting at the building where the NFL corporate offices are headquartered in New York. We'll talk about that in addition to training camps getting underway in the season. The death of pro wrestling's Hulk Hogan, a dramatic finish in NASCAR that we want to talk about, that and a lot more. Mike, good to be back with you here on the program as we've got a lot to go over, my friend.
Yeah, I can't imagine how hot it is where you are. It's supposed to be over, feels like 100 here today. It's been a miserable summer weather-wise. It either rains or it's oppressively hot. I'm looking forward to the football season. The fall needs to get here because it is ridiculous. I'm actually, summertime down the shore where I live, a lot of people come here to go to the beach. And that's when the locals leave to get away from the people who come to visit us.
That's right. Well, I mean, we should mention that here in the West Central Florida region, 114 is the heat index for this Tuesday right now, July the 29th. Tampa, by the way, had never had a triple-digit thermometer temperature in its 135-year history. Mike Gill, on Sunday, we reached 100, had 99 many times before, but it reached 100, so it is hot. It is hot right now all over the place.
I'm surprised to hear that.
How about that? I'm here. I'm here for all information, sports media, and meteorological on the program. So we'll tolerate the heat, though, this time of year in June, July, and August, because when everybody's freezing to death in December and January, it's 75, 80 degrees here where we live in this part of the world. But enough about that. Thank you for finding us, however you've done so. Social media right now, the Mike Gill YouTube page as well. As we do this live on a Tuesday afternoon, want to tell everybody upcoming in just a few, we'll talk with George Ofman, who did the long-running series Tell Me a Story I Don't Know podcast, the sports-themed podcast out of Chicago. George, nobody better to have insight on covering the entire career of Ryne Sandberg than George Ofman, including the dramatic moments that you've probably seen being replayed all over social media and Major League Baseball when he hit the 2 home runs in the nationally televised game on NBC back in the early 80s, Mike, when they had very few national TV games. Yeah, George was there that day. The Sandberg game, as it's known, is very famous in Chicago, and George actually called those home runs. He's going to explain all of that in a little bit, so we look forward to having him here on the live show.
Well, Ryne Sandberg, has a lot of connection to the Philadelphia
area. Yes,
he
does.
He was a prospect here, and they never saw a spot for him. So they said, we'll trade him and Larry Boa to the Cubs in exchange for Ivan DeJesus. DeJesus was a shortstop. Dallas Green was running the Cubs at the time, so he knew the Phillies farm system. He had 13 at-bats with the Phillies in 1981, and then they traded him to Chicago. He was the Rookie of the Year in 82. By 84, he was the MVP of the league. He turned into a Hall of Famer. He then came back to Philly. He was the minor league manager for the AAA team, and then he became the manager after Charlie Manuel was let go. Sandberg was the replacement for Manuel. Now, the managerial career did not go very well. The team was not good at that time. They had kind of been the older version of the 08 World Series team, but he is very much beloved here in Philadelphia as well. They did a lot of tributes on the broadcast last night when the news started to come out.
Yep, and he has been unfortunately very ill with cancer, including in recent weeks and recent days, so not completely unexpected. But George will shed more light on that, including following up on what you were saying about how Sandberg came to Chicago and was very quiet, very meek, and having to handle the Chicago onrush and the popularity. George will explain all of that. I will tell you, since you and I have talked, we have another death in this area. Pro wrestling icon, superstar, the man that launched the World Wrestling Federation, what's now World Wrestling Entertainment, into the stratosphere. Hulk Hogan died in my area last week. Hogan had been sick for several weeks, complications from neck surgery. He's had many surgeries post-wrestling, as you can imagine, several of them in the last couple of years. Complications from a neck surgery made him sicker, and he died at the age of 71. And we'll get to a tribute that the WWE did on Netflix for its Monday Night Wrestling program. Mike, it is safe to say he is one of the most recognizable figures in sports and entertainment of the last 50 years. Everybody, whether you're a sports fan or not, knows who that guy is. And he is so intertwined in the DNA and the fabric of the Tampa Bay area.
Yeah.
So we'll explain more of that a little bit later on in the show. But we're going all over the place to all these different sports and all this.
He's a really interesting one. I vacation, as you know, down in that area a lot. I have been to his beach shop. I have been to his bar. I think if you said to pretty much anybody, do you know who Hulk Hogan is? They know who Hulk Hogan is, and he hasn't been relevant in actually on television as a character in, really going back to like the early 2000s. He had a kind of a comeback with the WWE once his WCW days kind of ended and they sold. But I'm very intrigued what's the next incarnation of him, obviously deceased. But is there like licensing stuff? Is there things, that are still happening?
Get ready for the fight that's going to go every which direction with his ex-wife, his two children, his current wife, his business people. That it's sad, but that's coming next because Hogan was still apparently, from everything that we can gather, a multi-millionaire with business ventures and tens of millions of dollars in the estate, every which direction.
Starting new ventures. He had this Great American Beer. He had opened up a bar up in New York City. He was starting a new wrestling federation.
And apparently the bar restaurant is going to go ahead and open here later this summer. I did see that as well. And he's had. Do
you think the bar in Clearwater Beach will stay open or
probably?
Close?
Probably in the short term because they sell a lot of merchandise and memorabilia, etc. We cannot emphasize enough as children of the 80s how massive this guy was, making wrestling go into the mainstream where suddenly NBC wanted to be part of it as a television partner. And mainstream media began to cover it, Mike.
Right. We talk about it in the world that we're in, Last Word on Sports Media. This was basically the only thing that kept USA Television in business on
USA Network. Yeah.
And it is also the foreshadowing of what is happening in sports. The streaming services said we need events. And they look at Monday Night Raw, Netflix does, as an event every Monday night that you have to come to Netflix to watch. And it is, Netflix has Christmas Day games. Netflix did the Tyson fight. They are trying to find these big-time events that they can put on their streaming service. Amazon Prime obviously has the NBA coming this fall. They've got Thursday Night Football. Apple TV has Friday night baseball games, which I had to watch this Friday on Apple TV because the Phillies played the Yankees. So Monday Night Raw on Netflix, and all of this tied into the popularity that started from Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, no doubt. So we'll do a little bit on that tribute, et cetera. All right, so let's begin with baseball real quick. Trading deadline is coming on Thursday. So the MLB Network, ESPN, online, on social media, this will get covered a bunch. Do you anticipate that we'll see a blockbuster move maybe, or maybe more than one with the trading deadline and the media all racing to scoop each other on from all the baseball insiders, Jeff Passan of ESPN, Ken Rosenthal, all the insiders trying to scoop each other? Do you think this is going to get crazy here in the next 48 hours or so, Mike Gill?
Well, I don't know that there's a major, blockbuster trade to be made, but I definitely think with this new configuration with that third wild card team, there's more teams involved. So teams between today and Thursday, we're recording live here. We're live on a Tuesday, but you might watch this or listen on the podcast on Thursday at 6 o'clock. You might have a 3-game losing streak going into, and you might have been 4 games out today, and you might be 7 games out by the time Thursday comes around, and those teams would then decide, okay, we're out.
Perfect example is my Tampa Bay Rays in this market were rolling, and I mean rolling. They were even with the Yankees in the division at the end of June, and now they have plummeted over the course of the last 5 or 6 weeks. So the talk in the media here, the radio, the TV, the print coverage has been, were they going to be buyers at the trading deadline to add another arm, to add another bat? Well, now it looks like they've fallen apart. They are now 7-13 in their last 20 games, have dropped all the way down out of the wild card picture. I don't know that the Rays are going to really do anything. They made a trade involving their starting catcher last night, got another catcher from the Marlins who's much cheaper to be an everyday, but that's not a blockbuster thing. All over the place, there are teams that have fallen off, to your point, that how anxious are they to make a move before Thursday? That's the debate.
The bigger story in Tampa was where they're going to play playoff games at Steinbrenner Field.
And now apparently they're not going to have to worry about that because the Rays may not be at home for
play games there if they made the playoffs.
Yes, that had been announced.
How is that going?
It's done very well for what it is. The fans are there. It's a 10,000 seat state-of-the-art minor league baseball park, but it's a minor league baseball park. It's certainly gone better there than what it's done in Sacramento with the A's, which is a dumpier park, and most every team coming in is complaining vehemently about all of it. So it is an unfortunate circumstance of the Hurricanes last year that this is where they have to play, that the stadium in St. Petersburg is damaged. It's being repaired. But it doesn't look like it's going to matter for the Rays in the playoffs unless they do a miraculous turnaround.
Are they drawing well? Or are they selling?
They draw the 10,000 capacity. Okay. They've had the 10,000 capacity for like 90% of the games so far. Interestingly, they'll play the Dodgers and Ohtani this weekend, and that's the last home series for another couple of weeks because they rearranged the schedule to play earlier in the year to not have rainouts. So the Dodgers series and then literally the Rays don't play at home again until like late August. So stay tuned for how they do, and stay tuned for who gets busy at the trade deadline. Do the Yankees try to add something? The Cubs have been rolling. Do they try to add something? Stay tuned on the trading deadline for that. All right, anything else with baseball before we get to the George Ofman conversation?
Let me ask you this. In baseball, you mentioned Jeff Passan. Right now, I mean, the ESPN, MLB, it looks like they might start talking again about that Sunday night baseball package, the home run derby, the wild card round. They were supposed to announce where that was going at the All-Star break. Then they decided not to do it. Because
no one will give them money to do it. They don't have any leverage, MLB. Yes.
Right. So here we are, July 29th. They still don't have that decision made. What happens if nobody takes the deal?
I think it's a discount. It's a bargain bin. And whoever gets it is going to get it at the similar numbers we've been talking about, like what Apple TV is paying or Roku is paying or whomever. I wonder if ESPN doesn't come back with some kind of an offer that allows them to continue to show all the highlights and have the home run derby and have the wild card games, or maybe they're completely out. Maybe they don't want to do it. And so now MLB has to give a bargain discount to whomever is going to end up doing this. Turner, Fox, whomever adds in the Sunday night game.
Yeah, well,
stay tuned.
I did hear some buzz about a new that NBC could be reviving the NBC Sports Network, the old cable channel,
the one they killed 2 years ago.
Yes,
but to try to bring it back.
Now that they have the NBA back, and they could be in the game for baseball, they might need a sports outlet to put some of these games on that they currently do not have.
Yeah, and they have the college football as well, not only with Notre Dame home games, but with the Big Ten, and they may be looking to expand college football playoff games, et cetera, if they can ever get in on that. College basketball as well, because they added the Big East on Peacock on showing games. So who knows about who the new partner is. I still maintain, like we've talked about for the last few months, that they could end up showing it on the MLB network. The Sunday night game would be an MLB network broadcast being produced maybe by ESPN using their announcers, or being produced by Fox, or being produced by another broadcast partner, but it airs on the MLB network to get that in more homes and justify it. Who knows?
I wouldn't be shocked if ultimately it's back with ESPN in possibly this concoction, but because ESPN has their direct-to-consumer coming out, they need content. Speaking of which, the Rich Eisen show is coming back to ESPN Radio, and part of that whole deal is because they want the show to be on the app, the direct-to-consumer ESPN app, which goes into another topic of conversation, which is ESPN and NFL Network potentially being a buyer there, that they could purchase 10%. Then they would get NFL Network content. They could get Red Zone possibly. And ESPN needs a reason for someone to pay $30 a month.
Right,
to get
exactly.
the direct-to-consumer, because, quite frankly, I don't know why you would need an ESPN direct-to-consumer if I could just go to the television, go to what I've been doing normally. If I have YouTube TV and I'm paying $70 a month, why do I need to also pay $30 a month for ESPN?
There's the rub.
Give me something that the television station's not giving me.
And like, for example, I have Hulu, which is Disney owned. And if Hulu is showing all the ESPN channels, et cetera, why do I need the direct to consumer? The concern would be they're going to take ESPN off of Hulu, off of YouTube TV. I don't know that they would do that. I'm not reporting that. And then make you buy the direct consumer product. Stay tuned for that down the road while we talk to sports media. Do you want to hear now the conversation with George Ofman that I had, more on Ryne Sandberg, covering him? And George has got a couple of great play-by-play calls that he saved of himself calling those Ryne Sandberg home runs. So, Mike, why don't we play that right now here on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast, as George joined me earlier today on the death of Ryne Sandberg, an iconic figure in the Baseball Hall of Fame. They just put a statue up of him outside of Wrigley Field. So obviously heavy hearts all over Chicago for the beloved Cubs and for this guy who was a hero all through the 80s and the early 90s. So let's go to that now. Well, George, thank you for doing this. I wish it was a better occasion, but as we built this up, Ryne Sandberg is that beloved. It's still years and years, decades after he played for the Cubs, he is still beloved. Can you quantify obviously what he means to Chicago Cub fans right now? Can you quantify what he has meant back in the past?
Well, as I turn myself upside down, part of that is that the ex-Cubs that are still alive, are so entwined with the club. They're always seen, from Billy Williams, who I believe is 88, Fergie Jenkins, who is in his 90s, and Ryne Sandberg, who, would show up to many functions, and he just had his statue unveiled last year. So he's very omnipresent. And on top of that, his battle with cancer has been very, very public. And over the last couple of weeks, a number of athletes have been wearing his jersey number, whether they are, singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" or throwing out a first pitch like Bobby Dernier did the other day. A lot of people knew that his time was coming, and it was very unfortunate to hear it yesterday in a day of extraordinary news where just several hours earlier, the Chicago Cubs extended their general manager and president, Jed Hoyer's contract. So many things happened yesterday. But, Ryne Sandberg is an icon in this city, no question.
What was he like to cover? You covered his whole career. What was he like?
Well, very shy at first, extremely shy. And once again, we are
through technology.
I think technology is turning me upside down, which has been my life lately. But anyhow, extremely shy, especially the first couple of years he was here. In 1984, he had to get used to something I don't think he was prepared for, and that was stardom. And particularly after the Sandberg game in June of 1984. As time went on, he got a little more comfortable with that role, and even more so when he became a manager, and eventually the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. But he opened up. There are a lot of athletes who began that way, particularly people that I know here in the city. Chicago Blackhawks stars Doug Wilson was shy, like you couldn't believe, would never talk. Not only did he open up, he became a general manager of the San Jose Sharks. And the other guy was Steve Larmer, another guy, Blackhawk great, same way. So some guys start shy, but then they start to open up, and he did.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so you mentioned that Sandberg game, and I built this up, that it obviously, and you interviewed Bob Costas on your Tell Me a Story I Don't Know podcast series and the book that's now currently out. Get the book, or go back on this feed and you can hear George with Bob. And you talked to him about that day broadcasting in a time and an era where there were not a lot of games on national television, very few of them on national TV. And Costas calling those two dramatic home runs by Sandberg in the bottom of the ninth, and then in the bottom of whatever inning it was, the 10th or the 11th, the next inning. it really helped launch Costas's play-by-play career. How dramatic that was off of Bruce Sutter.
Yes.
Just say something about having that conversation with Costas, because that was the whole country seeing it everywhere. When not a lot of games again were on TV, and that was the NBC game of the week for Major League Baseball.
Yeah, they were. I remember Bob telling me it was the 9th and the 10th inning, and they were supposed to send the broadcast, I believe, to a boxing
correct
with Marv Albert and Dr. Freddie Pacheco. But of course, the game got extended by Sandberg not only in the 9th but the 10th, and I just for some reason can't remember the player who won the game for the Cubs in the 11th inning. It was also, by the way, if you remember, if not for Sandberg, it would have been the Willie McGee game. He went 5 for 6 for the Cardinals that day. So, but yes, it definitely. I mean, his career had already been launched, but that certainly made a dramatic difference in where his career was and where it was going. He was just part of that broadcast. By the way, the play-by-play was also done by Harry Carey.
On the radio, on Cubs radio. Correct.
Right.
So that's been floating around on social media. But now set this up, because in your radio endeavors and role, you're at Wrigley Field that day too. Yep. And you would frequently begin to call play-by-play because outlets would want to maybe use your call. Pick it up on that, on doing that.
Well, the CBS radio network did that until there were rights fees where they couldn't. And so they would take the freelancers, and I was a freelance that day, and forgive me as we continue to shake up this picture. And so I would go to games, and you would call them, and if you were able to, send the sound to it, you get paid for it. Well, it's the 9th inning, and I'm just going to take a chance. And I go out what was then called the Wrigley Field catwalk, where if the crowd is right near you, and you're on the press box, the edge of the press box outside. And so I called it in the 9th, and then of course he's up in the 10th. And guess what? I had another. You
went out on the catwalk again and called it. So better than us talking about you calling it, you, the king of archived stuff, you have your calls from some 41 years ago that played on CBS radio. Let's play it for the audience on the pod here on the Last Word on Sports Media pod. This is George calling the 2 dramatic Sandberg home runs, both times to tie the game off the famed Cardinal closer Bruce Sutter. This is how it sounded. Listen to this.
A big gap between right and center. Long fly, deep left. That ball is going to go. This game is tied. On a 1-1 pitch, Ryne Sandberg clocked the Sutter's split-fingered fastball, and Wrigley Field is going crazy. It's tied at 9. The last time Sandberg faced Sutter, he homered to tie the game. He can do it again. 1-1 pitch. High fly ball. Deep left. This ball is going to go. He did it again. He did it again. Ryne Sandberg has just hit another game-tying home run. Almost in the same place that he hit one in the 9th. The game is now tied at 11. Unbelievable.
First of all, we got to take George Ofman to Vegas, because you said he could tie it again. And the very next pitch, a 2-run homer to tie the game again. I can tell you still remember those moments 4 decades later now. What do you remember about the crowd roaring, him rounding the bases with you yelling into a microphone?
It truly was unbelievable. When you think about what were the odds of him doing that off, Bruce Sutter, who of course started his career with the Cubs, and through, I want to say, some pitching coach named Martin, I can't remember his name now, who taught him the split-fingered fastball. Nobody threw it. And then he wound up with the Cardinals, and he was still great. Back then they were throwing, 2-3 innings, the closers. But to hit the game-tying homer off him in the first place was basically unbelievable. But to do it again, not sure we'll ever see that in our lifetime. It was incredible.
And you've been at Wrigley Field a ton. Before that, for that, and then after that is, I don't want to speak for you, is that as loud outside of a postseason moment? Is that as loud and raucous as you can ever remember when those moments were happening? How would you describe it?
No, there were some moments when Sammy Sosa hit home runs. And, yeah, outside of the time that I remember when the Cubs won the pennant in 2016, and we went out on the field, like, what, it was 5 minutes later after, they allowed the media out, and I'm on the field. Now, this is different. You're standing on the field.
Right.
I've never heard Wrigley Field any louder than that. I couldn't believe the sound the players hear. It's louder down there than it is in the press box where you think it's extremely loud. So that was extraordinary. But there were times that, Sosa would hit home runs and, the crowd would go nuts. But certainly a hallmark moment in the time that I covered the Cubs.
That 84 season where those home runs happened, they end up making the league championship series, and they win the first 2 games, and you know where I'm going with this. They're on the cusp of maybe going to the World Series. When you reflect on that, it hurt. It still hurts that they didn't go to the World Series. It hurts less now that they won a World Series. Right. But it still was an amazing ride, wasn't it, in 84 with Sandberg? Relate that for the audience.
Think about this for a moment. Sandberg won the MVP that year. He hit 19 homers. But the other part of what happened that season was that he had 19 triples. Think about that. 19 triples. Stole 32 bases. It was an extraordinary season for Sandberg. But a lot of people are not remembering something today about his career. Remember in 1994, it was May, and he suddenly walked away from baseball. He retired because of an incident that involved his then wife, a charge of infidelity. And Sandberg not only missed that season, if you recall, that was the strike-shortened season, and so was the 95 season. He missed all of the 95 season, but he came back in 1996 at age 35 and a half. And he hit 25 homers and drove in 92 runs. That, in its own right, is extraordinary. You think of today that players are lasting longer as opposed to 40 years ago, that the guy missed a year, almost 2 seasons, and came back and did that. I mean, that's Hall of Fame in itself.
No doubt. Say a final word or two about the memory, the legacy, and the outpouring that we're seeing. It's still ongoing on this Tuesday as we release the podcast here with George Ofman. The outpouring is going to continue, but it has gone on for the better part of 16 to 24 hours. Say whatever you want to say in closing about Sandberg.
Well, what he did was quiet in its own right. Sandberg was not a flashy player. And, he talked about that during his Hall of Fame speech in 2005 at Cooperstown. It's the only time I ever went to the Hall of Fame. We were doing a live broadcast then, and it was also the day of the trading deadline, which they would never do again when there was the Hall of Fame. It just so happened to be, I think it was July 31st. And so here I am doing a broadcast until 3 p.m. Eastern. I'm there for the Sandberg ceremony. I didn't see it. I had to be on the air. I left. Somebody from the station played it for me. I had not heard it, and it was an extraordinary speech. And people are playing it today because he was humble. He respected the game. The game respected him. And because of that, I think there's just this extraordinary respect for one of the greatest players in Chicago baseball history.
And by the way, I didn't set it up well enough. The Cubs were nationwide on WGN. The whole country was seeing Ryne Sandberg play all the time on WGN cable, not necessarily national network TV. So a lot of people, a young TJ's watching Ryne Sandberg when I was living in Chattanooga, Tennessee, of all places, early on in my childhood. And I was not alone. There were millions of kids and adults and fans that were watching everywhere, watching the Cubs. Listen, you've done a great job encapsulating this. We want to promote one more time. Tell Me a Story I Don't Know is the podcast series. It's on this feed. You can go back and listen to any number of great interviews with George, but in specific, go back and hear Bob Costas telling the stories about the Sandberg game. In specific, search Bob's name, search George's name. Tell Me a Story I Don't Know is a book as well. It's out on Amazon Books. Search it, Tell Me a Story I Don't Know, and follow George on social media with one F, George Ofman, Ofman. Did I leave anything else out in closing? You're always great to join me wherever and whenever, and you popped on today when I needed you. Anything else in closing?
Yes. A lot of credit for Ryne Sandberg goes to Dallas Green, who came from the Philadelphia Phillies, become the general manager of the Chicago Cubs. And he wanted Sandberg in a trade that included Ivan DeJesus and Larry Boa coming to the Cubs and DeJesus going to Philadelphia. He pulled that trade off. He played Sandberg at third the first year, then played him at second. Remember, Sandberg started his career something like 1 for 42. After that, things worked out fairly well. Dallas Green gets a lot of credit for making the Chicago Cubs a championship caliber team and helping Ryne Sandberg become a Hall of Famer.
The guy that was a prospect throw-in turned out to be a Hall of Fame player.
Yep.
And the segue is perfect because you're a Hall of Famer in my book. George Ofman, thank you for hanging with me to reminisce about Ryne Sandberg, and fantastic work on the podcast series and those calls of the home runs. Keep it up, young man. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to try to make sure that I can turn my situation back upside down again.
You were a pro. You worked it well. Thank you, George.
Thanks, DJ.
Love whenever we get the chance to talk with that guy, with George, and again the pod feed and about Ryne Sandberg. And I like what he had to say, that he was. I mean, the Chicago media can be brutal, Mike, when we bring it back to sports media coverage. And Sandberg was having a lot of success, but did you hear what he said? Sandberg began his pro career 1 for 42. Can you imagine trying to survive that in the present with social media and all the venom and all the hatred that's on there? It's different time, that's for sure.
It's interesting because I saw somebody post on Twitter X today that Ryne Sandberg has almost 2% of every base hit in the history of the Chicago Cubs.
Wow. And he mentioned the triples, why I was laughing. I mean, that's like the lost art. Nobody hits triples anymore. You go back to like the 70s and the 80s, everybody would leg a double into a triple. I mean, we're talking about you would have 50 guys that would hit 6, 7, 8, 10 triples. Nobody's ever going for third anymore. They make too much money, I guess, Mike. They're not doing the Pete Rose slide with the dirt flying everywhere, head first into third or into home. We don't see that anymore. So
no, they aren't. And it's funny because I wrote an article about him last night for our website, and it was, he was the Phillies manager. And he mentioned, George did, about Dallas Green, and that he handpicked really. Sandberg was a throw-in that deal. It wasn't like today you're talking about the trade deadline and, hey, I want your top prospect. They were like, hey, throw this guy into the deal. And the Phillies were kind of like, yeah, we have Mike Schmidt at third. We have Manny Trio at second. So we really don't see a spot for Ryne Sandberg. So, sure, you can have this guy.
By the way, Jarren Duran of the Red Sox has 12 triples right now to lead Major League Baseball. Zach McKinstry of Detroit has 8. Michael Garcia of the Royals has 5. That's the 3 guys leading in triples right now. But I mean, you would go 100 games into a season in the 1980s, and I'm telling you, there'd be 50 guys that would have 10 or more triples by now. Different time, different era.
When you think of Ryne Sandberg, you don't necessarily think of a stolen base speed guy. You think that he was a good blend of, I think when he retired, at the time, he had 277 career home runs. I think that was the most by a second baseman. I think Jeff Kent eventually passed him. So
listen
he was
to
one
you.
of the more powerful. Well, Sandberg was a Philly guy. Come on,
listen to you breaking out the knowledge.
We only played 13 games here in Philly, but he is rather well, highly regarded as a member of the organization. When you play in Philly, you're always remembered. Follow
up. When he was the manager, how did he handle the media? How did the media handle him? Was it acrimony? Was it venom? From what you remember?
Say he was very quiet. He was not a very, talkative guy, and the team was not very good. And he replaced Charlie Manuel. So he's replacing the one guy who won a World Series here.
Right.
And, it comes over, and I think people were excited that Sandberg was back with the organization. They traded him away, and he had success in Chicago. Now he's back where he got the start, and it just never went well. And eventually he actually resigned and kind of stepped down because, the media kind of did not – they were not good. They just were not a good team. I think I think he was 119 and 150 something, so he did not have a good tenure here.
But, I mean, if you're in New York, if you're in Philadelphia, if you are in Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, it's just different. It's more combative. If you don't win, you better be ready for it, especially in those markets. All right, so let's move on. Let's talk some football. NFL training camps are underway. We did mention that earlier. The Hall of
Oh, we lost TJ there for a second, but we'll get him back here in just a moment here on the Last Word on Sports Media. The Hall of Fame game is this week. Yes, we do have football coming up, and, of course, all the football will be starting on Thursday night with the Hall of Fame game. All the inductees will go in, and then, of course, that will be the Thursday night will be the first of the football season, which will take us all the way through the Super Bowl. Every single weekend we'll have. Sorry there, I kicked you out of the studio accidentally.
I didn't know if it was me. We were having fun with the technical stuff with George. I didn't know if the Gremlins were back. And I started to say the NFL is back, and then I was gone. So go ahead. Finish your thought.
Every single weekend from now until February, we will now have football starting with the Hall of Fame game on Thursday night. And that is a Sunday Night Football broadcast?
I believe, yes. I believe that is NBC that has that for the Chargers and the Detroit Lions that get things underway.
Very good.
And here we go with, again, whatever it is in the preseason for the next 3 weeks. And then the NFL regular season will get here for the first part of September. Almost here. It's almost here. College football will be here in about 3 weeks. They've begun practicing. So we have football back, including if you want to watch the NFL Network. It's like round-the-clock coverage of training camp of players in shirts and shorts and helmets running around and running drills. I think the biggest value of all of that is they have like updates on maybe a position battle for a certain team, who's getting reps with the first team. And the other thing is, are my guys injured? Because there's injuries all over the place already. You're finding out that information through social media, yes, but the NFL Network's coverage of training camp and ESPN to a lesser extent. So, Mike, it is all about to be here, is my point on that. So
it is, and I do want to talk. I wasn't on last week, but 2 weeks ago, we had all the news about the FS1 shows that all got thrown out, and then you had asked me, what can they do to replace it? And I had mentioned, they got to find a podcast, and I mentioned the Levitard show or something of that realm. Well, they must have listened to me, because later on that day, I think
right,
it was,
right.
They decided and announced that it was going to be Barstool Sports will be on FS1. Apparently, it's going to be 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. They're going to have a show. No details on who's going to be on the show, what kind of the Barstool characters will be hosting that show. But they also announced that Dave Portnoy will be a part of the big noon kickoff pregame show.
Right.
So is that their, we talked about it, that they're going to do something to try to do what ESPN has done with McAfee. Well, they listened to us.
Yes, and it's cost effective, like we've talked about, because Barstool's going to be producing it, if I understand correctly. And it fills up some of the hours to maybe give them an audience lead in to what they've been doing with the Colin Cowherd simulcast, etc. You mentioned earlier Rich Eisen's show will move to ESPN radio on the radio, but it's also going to be available on their television platforms. And Dan Patrick's show, I believe, is now moving back to Peacock. It had been on the NBC Sports Network channel. I think I saw that as well. His 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time daily show. So everybody's kind of jockeying for that middle of the day audience. McAfee's got the big head start. Yeah, well, McAfee's got the big head start, though. We know that. That's for sure, for talking the NFL.
Listen, most of these shows, the Eisen show is going to be on the radio, but it's going to be a video component. They get, 200,000 viewers on YouTube, the McAfee show. They're getting more viewers on YouTube than they are on linear television here. The linear television is the promotional tool for all of the other clips, YouTube, social media, and just taking little parts of the show and getting them out there. It's kind of the conversation with the Stephen Colbert show, where no one's watching these late-night television shows, and they're saying we're losing $40 million a year on this show, so they can't do the show. And, of course, a lot of people think it's political, but that's neither here nor there. No one's watching the show.
That's as I said on the pod.
Show on YouTube, clips, Twitter X, TikTok.
Sure.
That's where they're watching the show.
The key is if it is cost effective and or even making them money, it's going to stay on the air. And that's where the Colbert thing comes in. By the way, I'll just share this on the last word of sports on sports. Pay very close attention in the next 8 or 9 days, because there is an internal fight going on where it's obvious that Colbert wants CBS, before the merger goes through, to fire him and pay all of his people without having to work. They apparently are not going to do that. We don't know for sure. He continues to insult them and blast them. It's rather transparent what he's trying to do.
Well, why wouldn't he?
And then the merger. So then the merger happens next Thursday, apparently, is the merger. August the 7th is when Skydance will take over. And then what do? Do they elect to continue to pay him? Do they suspend him?
Well,
what do they do with the show?
We just saw this recently with what happened with Michelle Beadle and her show, when they basically said, you're getting replaced by Stephen A. Smith. They went on the air with Eric Decker for 2 straight days and just blasted Sirius XM. And finally Sirius XM said, okay, that's enough. You told Colbert, this Colbert, I'm not a big Colbert guy. I've never even seen the show one time in my life, so I can't really say the show was good, bad, or indifferent. But from what I understand, Colbert played a character named Stephen Colbert, on his Comedy
previous
Central
thing
show,
on the Comedy Channel. Correct.
Got him hired. Well, then he went to CBS and the show was very stiff and not funny.
Became him.
Yes.
Instead of becoming the poke fun at Washington, D.C. and the character and the cartoonish nature of what he was doing.
Correct.
But here's the reality. They're looking to do live sports. They're looking to do things on that network that make them a lot of money. This show does not. And so they'll replace whatever show it is if it's not making money. Stay tuned on that one. All right, so let's move to a couple of other things, because I know you've got to get ready as we do this live on this Tuesday on the Last Word on Sports Media podcast to get ready to do your own show, the Sports Bash show in the greater Philadelphia market in Atlantic City, 2 to 6 Eastern time. Mike is on. The scary situation with this lunatic, and we won't even worry about naming him, but the lunatic that drove all the way across the country from Las Vegas to the Midtown Manhattan headquarters of the National Football League. And it is now confirmed from a note that he had in his pocket, this guy intended with an automatic weapon to go into the NFL offices and begin killing people. He's a lunatic. He killed people in the lobby of the building on Park Avenue, where the NFL is headquartered. And then as the NYPD is revealed and the mayor, Eric Adams, have revealed, he apparently got on a wrong set of elevators that took him to all of the higher floors. If you've been in a lot of high-rise buildings, the new high-tech thing is all the elevators don't go 1 through 90. Some of them go 50 through 90, and the others go 1 through 50. Hotels, big buildings, etc. He apparently, after the horrific events in the lobby, got on the wrong set of elevators, because the note they found, Mike Gill, was that he intended to kill people in the NFL offices, that he believed he had CTE. He claimed that he had played in the NFL when he had not. I mean, this is scary, twisted stuff to begin with, but it's even scarier that he was headed to the NFL offices if he could have gotten in there. Crazy story, obviously, from Monday night, and now here we are into Tuesday with all of this as it unfolds. With this,
and the fact that he went to the wrong floor. Think about that. I mean, he just absolutely could have changed the complexion of a lot of the conversation today. But as more information is coming out, this happens at 345 Park Avenue, which is the address of the NFL. And according to many reports, there was a note. He went with a note from the government.
On him.
And
yes.
made reference to CTE. And basically, he's a young guy, 27 years old, who had not played in the NFL, but apparently said that he had, CTE
and said, study my brain. He said in the note, study my brain, all the things that you've heard and you've said. Again, an NFL employee was shot and seriously injured, but is still alive as we're doing this on Tuesday. 4 other civilians were shot and killed. An NYPD off-duty officer who's a security guard in that building. A lot of the NYPD will have security opportunities for the officers guarding different buildings when they're not on duty, patrolling, or working for the NYPD.
And then ultimately killed himself.
Killed himself up on the 33rd floor. Horrific story during all of this with the media coverage. And again, social media. Can I just share this? On Tuesday morning, I'm watching the NFL Network, and they're going on and on live about training camp and about lists of their all-time players. They don't even have a crawl on the bottom of the screen with any kind of an update. But social media, the phone, the computer, began to reveal the information that we're sharing now on this podcast, that he had targeted the NFL offices. This shooter, that's where he intended to go. Mike, he drove all the way across the country over 3 days to come and do this. It's a crazy, insane story. It's not something that's surprising to hear that he apparently had mental health problems and had been institutionalized even for the mental health problems, this individual. But it's crazy that the coverage was coming through social media instantaneously when the mayor gave his latest statement on Tuesday morning. This is the age that we're now in. You find out instantaneously, you react instantaneously. You don't almost need news programs or newspapers or online stories anymore to keep you instantly up to date. You don't. It's crazy.
It's and the fact that this was happening in real time and being updated like that, and you're just kind of scrolling through to see if there's any new information and saying, oh, my God, it's on the NFL floor. Forget what floor. The guy went to the wrong floor, but the fact that it had the intention was to go to the NFL really brought it closer to
the sports world, and it's horrific for all that are involved with what was happening on this. So crazy stuff. All right, so let's lighten it up, I guess, a little bit to an extent. All right, what else do you have here in the ratings world? And then we got to talk a little Deion Sanders and a couple of other things. Go ahead.
Well, we were talking baseball and, who's going to get this package. Well, Fox, over 2 million viewers for Saturday's baseball night in America. That was a Red Sox win over the Dodgers. So Red Sox-Dodgers, 2 million people on Fox. And it shows that, hey, baseball can still pull in some viewers, so Fox gets a big number there. That's
relative.
Why I'm so interested to find out.
Big is relative. Big being 2 million. These games used to get 5 million at least for the biggest ones. It's just dwindled down that much, and that's why the prices dwindled down. The Mets-Giants was the Sunday night game, and I don't know if they got the same 2 million on Sunday night with big market New York playing in San Francisco. We'll wait for ESPN to tell us that. Shall we move on to Coach Prime? Speaking of media and social media and attention, shall we move on to that?
Yes, but before we get to that, Savannah Bananas averaged 837,000 viewers on ESPN for their game that was played at Fenway Park. It's the most watched sports program in prime time on all of cable for that week. So the Bananas are a television product that I'm going to imagine you're going to start seeing more of.
And they again are going to show several more games. They've showed several already.
It's a Philly right now.
It's a younger audience. So are you going? Are you going to be in your yellow outfit like Jesse Cole? I mean, they have the younger audience right now, bringing mom and dad to the games and everybody wanting to watch something that Major League Baseball has been desperately chasing, trying to get back the younger audience, the kids, et cetera. The Savannah Bananas clearly have it. And I know you shared your idea that on All-Star Weekend they should do something with them, but I don't know how apt they're going to be to cooperate with somebody that's looking to compete against them. The Savannah Bananas are looking to have their own league.
That's the thing, though. You don't compete. You say, if we, let's join them. Let's promote each other.
Join forces.
They're not really competing. I mean, the Savannah Bananas, they're already on ESPN television. They're on the CW as well. They're selling out 81,000-seat stadiums. They just sold out Citizens Bank Park 2 nights in a row. They sold out Fenway Park. I mean, they're barnstorming across the country. Add to the popularity of them and bring it into what you have. I said the other day, have them a part of your all-star festivities. Maybe they play against the future stars. You play a banana ball game against the future stars. But I would do whatever I could if I was Rob Manfred to get my hands on that product.
I hear you. Shall we move on? Let's go to Coach Prime real quick. Yeah. Deion Sanders revealing cancer diagnosis. It had been known, Mike Gill, that he was having serious health problems. At the Big 12's media days 2 weeks ago, Deion looked very thin and frail and was refusing to talk about his health. He actually was here in Tampa, where I am, with the Buccaneers training camp opening because one of his sons, Shiloh, is one of the Buccaneer rookie free agent defensive backs. He came and was around the Bucs practice for one of the days, but didn't talk to any of the media, didn't talk to the team. And media people that were around him said did not look good, looks ill. He finally addressed on Monday that it was actually a cancerous tumor in his bladder, that his bladder had to be removed. And Deion was serious on one part, saying, get yourself checked. If I had not been getting myself checked, I would be having a different conversation. I would maybe be dead. It would be too late with bladder cancer spreading all over his body. As it stands, his doctor was there. She shared at the news conference they believe they've gotten all of it, that they've stopped the spread of it. He's going to coach this season. He joked about having to have a porta potty on the sideline because he may have to use that. And he said, get ready for it. I'm not just making this up to be funny. I may have to use this during the season. And then I think you have the clip here where he talked about Randy Moss, who's got his own cancer battle and had to leave the ESPN airwaves because of his own cancer battle at the end of last season, that Randy Moss was in contact with Coach Prime, with Deion Sanders. So if you have that, let's play it for the Last Word on Sports Media audience. This was Deion Sanders' news conference Monday in Boulder, Colorado, kickoff to the Colorado practices and eventual college football season coming. But he talked about Randy Moss getting, the former Viking great, his contemporary, getting in touch with him.
We'll have it for you in just a second here.
Stand by. It's been one of those kind of shows.
It is loading up for us here. There we go. It is ready to go now. Here we go.
Let me tell you something. Randy Moss called me every other day to make sure I was straight. Randy Moss prayed for me. He and his wife told me what I need to be doing. He's gone through some things very similar. But Randy Moss, man, I love him to life, love him more than ever. I prayed, he told me he's going to come to the game this year. I pray that, but he gave me so much strength and so much guidance and so much love, respect, and appreciation. Thank you, Randy. I really appreciate you. I really do. Tell you something.
There you go. So again, Colorado comes off a year where they did turn things around with his son at quarterback. There is, some belief they've got a great freshman, prospect to come in and play quarterback, but they're probably going to take some backward steps this year in a very competitive Big 12. They open on the Friday night of Labor Day weekend with Georgia Tech. That's Colorado's opening game. But Coach Prime said, hey, I am able to be here. I'm able to coach the team. For a while, Mike Gill, they had been wondering whether someone else was going to have to step in and coach the team off of his staff, but Deion is apparently able to do it. So there you go. College season getting underway. And the biggest message, because we are contemporaries, we are middle-aged men now, for everybody that is middle-aged, male or female, get yourselves regularly checked. I went through the whole rigmarole with my doctor last week, all of it, blood work, EKG, all of the tests, all that you need to do, all the different screenings that you need to do. Colon screening, if you haven't done that for colon cancer, it's huge. It's a huge problem for middle-aged men. Do the cancer screening for your colon. I echo what Deion is saying, because early detection is the key on all of this stuff. Get regularly checked. There's his message from Monday. So there you go. Any thoughts from you, or shall we move on to other subjects? College football about to be here as well. Coming in a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks.
By the way, Deion is the classic case of taking something like this and turning it into he'll probably turn it into another promotion.
A cause, right? A cause.
Well,
right.
A cause, but also I'm sure he'll probably prosper off of it in some capacity.
An endorsement for a bladder cancer drug coming to a ad near you, maybe.
Well, wasn't he the Affleck guy? Is he
correct?
Yeah.
Covering his insurance for all of his healthcare stuff. All right, few moments left. I wanted to play you want to go ahead and play either the NASCAR call of Bubba Wallace winning the race at Indianapolis on TNT. I thought this was a great call off the weekend. This is to set it up. The final couple of laps in Indianapolis, they had a brief rain delay, which shut the race down. They had 2 attempts at the end to have a green flag finish if they could. They had wrecks and problems, and had to restart a third time. So the drivers are about out of gas, literally. So that you got that drama working. This is the TNT call of Adam Alexander, Dale Earnhardt Jr., the Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Steve Letarte. You're going to hear them calling the dramatic finish where it ends up that Bubba Wallace is the winner. But this is great commentary and TV with the pictures and the sound. So I wanted to prop this a little bit here on the pod. So Mike, go ahead and roll it. The final 2 laps in Indianapolis on TNT and from NASCAR this weekend. Here it is.
This time the watch is really even between the 23 and the 5. Side by side, door to door, down into turn 1. High, they'll miss the corner. Wiggle right there with Larson.
Bubba Wallace gets it done again. 23 out front off of turn 2.
Will we stay green? Do they have the fuel? Those are the big questions.
If they can get back around to the white flag, the next flag will win the race. And they're getting aggressive in the back of the pack, down the back straightaway, into turn 3. Bubba Wallace leading.
Oh, we got a couple of cars up the racetrack. So far, all good. Coming back down the track, down into turn 4. Bubba Wallace will lead off 4, coming to the white flag. He needs 2.5 miles worth of Sunoco fuel.
White flag is out. Next flag ends at 1 lap to go for Bubba Wallace. Larson not going away. Trying to win his way to the postseason.
Still 5 back and have a small run. Be ready for the late dive.
Larson with a bit of momentum down the back straightaway. It's not going to be enough.
Does Bubba Wallace have enough fuel?
Hamlin is around Byron for 3rd.
Byron's out of fuel, Steve.
24 is out. Will the 23 make it? They were both so close.
Here they come off of turn 4. The Brickyard belongs to Bubba. Wallace wins at Indy. And he's going to the playoffs.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Thank you so much.
The sights, the sounds, the pictures, all of it. I thought that was tremendous stuff. Bubba Wallace becomes the first black driver to ever win at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in one of the big time events, obviously the Indy 500 or the NASCAR race. He had won previous NASCAR races. I believe that was his 4th career win. But how about that? He also qualifies for the NASCAR playoffs by winning that. And I thought the crew did a great job of giving you information and kind of staying out of the way and not getting overexcited while we analyze and critique Mike Gill. There was no hyperbolic yelling, no stepping on top of each other. Earnhardt Jr. made the great point. Is everybody going to be out of gas here coming up? And you even heard Marty Snyder, who I have a long relationship with, one of the pit reporters. He clicked on his pit mic and said, William Byron. He said, Byron's out of gas. And then the question became, is Bubba Wallace going to run out of gas before he ever gets to the finish line? So that was neat to show everybody. I thought that was well done. Do you have any thoughts? I know NASCAR and racing, maybe not for everybody, but I thought I would share that.
I am not a NASCAR guy, but I did like the fact that the guy got in that he was running out of Sunoco fuel. He made sure
Yes.
to mention.
NASCAR always with the sponsors, so that was well done on that. Listen, I know you've got to run. You've got your Sports Bash show that's coming up. Thanks to George Ofman for being with us. We'll see what happens with the trade deadline. Also, NFL training camps underway. College football will be here soon enough. We'll be watching it all across the sports media landscape. Mike, good stuff. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate you.
Always good. We'll do it again.
There goes Mike Gill. I'm merely TJ Reeves. Follow or subscribe on the podcast outlets. Also, find us on social media and Mike Gill's YouTube page for the Last Word on Sports Media podcast.